Welcome to Anderson Speaks. I'm your host, Kyle Densler. For this June edition, we have a fantastic slate of guests, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first set. With me is Dr. Dallas Jackson, Superintendent of Forest Hill School District, and an outstanding student, Alex Stringfellow.
Stringfellow, that's it, yes.
Stringfellow.
Fellow, yes.
Okay, wanted to make sure.
Yep.
Alex and Dr. Jackson, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Kyle.
It's good to have you back, sir.
Thank you.
Enjoyed our last chat and looking forward to more, so this better be good.
This is outstanding.
I love when we get to brag on people, and that's what this interview is all about. So, tell us about some recent travels you guys did this spring.
Well, this spring we got to go to China, of all places, and I went with part of a student group. EF Tours had sponsored it. It was a group of 15 of us, and we traveled for 10 days in China. Got to see places like the Great Wall, Tiananmen Square, and we went to the EF Youth Summit.
I mean, did you see the entire wall or just like a section?
We saw the part of the wall,
You know what I'm saying?
the
You're only
coolest
there
part
for
of the
10
wall.
days.
Well, we went to Battling, where all the tourists are, I guess. And, but it was the most preserved, and you could see the wall snaking on in either direction, massively, and it was incredible. I mean, just how wide it was truly amazing. Then you look down, and you realize this is just full of stones that people built hundreds of years ago. It was incredible.
Now, when I was in college, through EF Tours, I got to go to Europe for a month, which was really cool, but still the culture and things are similar enough, or wasn't too much of a shock. When you touched down in China, and what was that like when you first, was everything Greek to you?
Well, there was nothing there. It was very interesting when we touched down. We touched down about 9 o'clock Shanghai time, and we came out of the plane, and there was nothing there. There were very few people there. We went through customs, and it seemed very empty at first. Like,
really?
The airport was massive, but there didn't seem to be anybody in it. And then we went out, and the moment we hit the street, it was incredible. The air was just a buzz, I guess you could say. It was heavy, but you could feel that there was life outside the airport. And so on the first night, we went to a place in Shanghai for dinner, and you could definitely see it wasn't necessarily that different to America, but there was a different feel to it. It seemed a lot more metropolitan, cosmopolitan than somewhere like Cincinnati.
Is there is it easy for folks like who only speak English, only read English to get around? Are they pretty like
I think for most
bilingual
of
that
what
way?
we did, speaking English was all right. We did have a couple of experiences speaking Chinese. We had a guy in our group who spoke fluent Chinese.
Wow.
So we were able to communicate a lot with them through him. But for the most part, it was we were able to get around just with English.
Wow. And were you able to attend this as well?
I did. I actually traveled separately than Alex. I actually arrived at Beijing, China, a few days earlier than Alex departed to China. It was a little bit different experience for me because going into Beijing, which is a very large old city in China, the little bit different in regards to the culture difference. There were very few people that spoke English.
Wow.
And so in my experience in that particular city was that it was definitely being, you knew that you were in a different country completely.
There's definitely, from my experience and your all's experience, there are certain places you can tell they're very accustomed to tourists and to people visiting. They're sometimes more commercialized, but they've kind of changed and so they can be welcoming. And there are other places that's not that they're not welcoming, but maybe they're not visited as much, but it's more, I guess you could say, I don't want to say it's sincere, but there were places when I went to where I felt like I was really in old England versus, at a McDonald's in London. So.
Oh, absolutely. We felt the same in my travels, going to either a school, which was primarily my job, was while I was there to attend some schools, talk to some of the local
You had to
educational.
work on vacation?
I worked on vacation.
Oh, man.
It really wasn't a vacation, Kyle. But no, my goal and it was to meet with educational officials. We talk about school, the differences between our cultures. They ask a lot of questions about collaboration, things that are foreign to their culture.
Really?
And we had, most of my work was done through interpreters.
Now, you didn't go just because you met some other teachers on Facebook.
No.
This was through who? Who made this possible?
Actually, I belong to an organization in Columbus called the Buckeye Association for School Administrators, BASA. I've done work with BASA for the past several years. I'm involved in several of their different committee work, and they were aware of the work that we were doing back here in Cincinnati and in Forest Hills in regards to our world studies and how we were trying to expand that program. And so when this opportunity came up, they thought of me here at Forest Hills And in particular with Education First, or what formerly was EF Tours, this whole student summit concept. And so they asked me to go to be an ambassador for Ohio for BASA, but also to be involved in the summit, which unbelievably was probably in my many years of education one of the most outstanding things that I've ever witnessed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, tell us how the summit functioned. What was its purpose, and how did this young man get to be a part of it?
Okay, absolutely. Let me begin, Alex.
Yeah.
But the summit itself is Education First. Is actually for the past couple years they're venturing out from the touring aspect in the United States to more of a global concept. Like they're doing in other countries. Actually, Education First has well over 20,000 employees worldwide.
And one thing I wanted to add was Education First is how we see it in America, but for the rest of the world, most of it calls it English First. It's here that we really see it as Education First. We don't need to learn English. But for a lot of the world, they mainly function as an English language.
Really?
But they have about 20 different organizations within them, which makes it so interesting. It's a huge organization. I never really realized that till I went.
So the tours part, of which I'm familiar with, is just part of what
It's
they
just
do.
a part of it.
Very
Yeah.
small part of what they do.
Very cool.
What they do primarily worldwide is teach education, teach English to different countries. They have lots of schools worldwide. But so the concept is how can we get young high school students together to work collaboratively in groups to learn a concept to actually, in a way, look at solving some of the social issues in the world. The summit that Alex attended was actually an education summit in regards to economics.
Yeah, it was mainly focused on the new global economy and the way leadership should be done, and people should collaborate and stay competitive in the new global economy that we're seeing now.
So EF then chose Shanghai because of a country in regards to what is happening economically in China, and Shanghai is their banking center.
Okay.
And so that's what we participated in. Alex was a member of probably over 500 kids
yes.
from the United States, from China, and from around the world who worked collaboratively together. It was amazing to see.
I think one of the best parts of, or the best ways they allowed us to work together, they have this thing called the Innovation Village. Essentially, we came together, we had chosen a topic beforehand, whether it was public safety or education or the environment, and we came together in groups of 15. They were 10 to 15. They were completely random, and we didn't know any of these people. I didn't know anybody in my group. There were Chinese students, there were American students, and we had to come up with a project. We went through this thing called the design thinking, which is essentially 7 steps of how to come up with, determine a problem, and then come up with a solution, and have it structured so if there's a problem, you can go back and rework it. So we were able to work really well together as a group. And the one really interesting thing I noted was the Chinese students started off very shy. They didn't really want to talk much. But when they were engaged, they had some great ideas, and they really brought a different kind of culture, different ideas to the table, which I thought was really interesting.
Awesome. Now, how was communication? Could they speak English? Did you have an interpreter?
They spoke fluent English. They spoke fantastic English. They even knew a lot of the pop culture slang stuff that we have here, which I thought was incredible.
Thank you, YouTube.
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Although some of YouTube is not permitted in China.
Yes.
Oh,
But
imagine.
as Alex has shared through my visits to schools, there are two languages that are taught in China. One is Mandarin, of course, or their type of Chinese, and the second is English. English is taught from kindergarten through graduation of high school. And so even though I visited schools that had many years of English, some of those students still were not real fluent in English, but then there are other schools and other kids that were. And so again, the group that Alex worked with were very fluent in English.
And I also noticed that there were, depending on what schools they went to, they were also fluent or not fluent. There was one girl in my group who went to more of a public school, and her English was more borderline. And there was a girl in an international school in Shanghai who spoke, her English was probably better than mine. So it just depends, I guess, how much their parents push them, and then what kind of schooling they're in and how rigorous it is.
Just touch briefly, people talk, a lot of times in the news media you hear about communist China. did you feel, did you see, was there anything that lent to that in a negative or positive way, like you could just see the differences?
I don't think you could really feel that there was anything communist. Every once in a while as we were driving, we saw a communist building, but there was nothing really in-your-face communism. It mostly seemed like a free market capitalist society. There were shops that seemed to be privately owned. It was, and I also, one thing that I noticed was there were a lot of poor people there, people that were selling on the streets, but I didn't see any homeless people there, which I thought was incredible. But there was no real communism propaganda, anything like that in your face, which it seemed more or less in that sense like America.
You didn't feel like any of the kind of the stereotypical ideas people have of everything's controlled and now you have to go here and don't talk to those people.
I guess the only part of that was the internet.
Okay.
But other than that, I didn't really feel
very cool.
very much like that.
So Alex, how were you, I'm assuming, chosen for this?
Yes. Well, as far as I know, the district, this is how I applied. The district had a contest of sorts, I guess, a competition where we submitted a project, everybody that wanted to apply, that was a junior or a senior, and we had to develop a socially responsible business and create either a video or an essay for it. And my socially responsible business dealt with healthy eating, so making school lunches more diverse, I guess you could say. So having foods from around the world so that they're not only healthier, but they're also give the students more of a worldview, where their food comes from and how other people in the world eat.
Very cool. Very cool. Were you part of the judging process?
You bet I was. I was part of that process. I kind of came in at the last minute, but I did get to view every one of the projects. We had a number of kids apply, and quite frankly, Alex's project was just phenomenal. When I saw that, it was like, for my vote, he was definitely the person. We were so fortunate, both of us, through BASA and through Education First, to have our trips scholarship, so to speak. So wow. Alex got to go to China and have this phenomenal experience at no cost to him, other than maybe some souvenirs he might have bought. And the same with mine too. So wow. That's what was also very exciting for us to be able to have this opportunity and not cost Forest Hill School District or our taxpayers any money for me to attend and to get quite a bit out of that. So
that's a big deal.
Yes, it was a huge deal.
Very cool. Very cool. So any other highlights from the trip, whether it was kind of from a tourist aspect or from the summit itself?
Well, I thought from the summit itself, they had two great keynote speakers. I guess you could say three. They had the Planet Money guys, Adam Davidson and Alex Bloomberg, who talked a lot about how the global economy is changing, how much it's already changed. And then John Huntsman, who was ambassador to China a couple years ago, and he talked about the relationship between the U.S. and China and the role technology would play in that, as well as the cooperation needed between the two. And I thought there was a huge worldview in the summit. It wasn't focused, it wasn't narrow-minded towards your community. There was actually an emphasis on looking at the big picture, looking at the globe, which I thought was incredible and a different way to see things.
In what sense? As in from a perspective of entire countries, instead of within a country, businesses or areas competing economically, like countries competing or countries working together to kind of make sure?
Well, I think it was mostly focused on countries working together, but there was a big focus on socially responsible businesses, which are businesses that aren't necessarily charities, but they make profit, but they're sustainable in their business model. And I thought that was a very interesting idea. And so most of that is based on, so you have these socially responsible businesses, and they work all over the world. And I think that was a big part of the global.
Do you have any examples? I mean, you had the one of healthy eating. What are some other examples?
Well, I guess you have Tom's, which is your well-known shoe one that they make shoes and then they give them to children in third world countries. But there was a girl in my group who ran a banana bread company, and she raised $10,000 in a couple of months to run an orphanage in Thailand, finish an orphanage, which I thought somebody my age is doing it really made me think about how I want to contribute to the world.
So it could be about the product or service being offered, but it's also very much about what the business does.
What it gives back,
with their give back. Okay.
And that was what was so exciting to me, was the whole concept of social entrepreneurism. It's just what Alex was saying, is that idea of, it's not saying that, in the global economy that profits aren't to be made, but it's what can you do with some of those profits or some of the products to help underprivileged organizations and or countries. There was another prime example of an American student who had looked at designing watch bands. And the watch bands is just a common watch band, the wrap style watch band, but she designed 5 different ones. One had a Chinese design, one had an Indian design, maybe an African design, and so on and so forth. When she designed and marketed those watch bands, she took a large portion of the profit and gave back to the needy individuals and or organizations of that culture. So if she sold more Chinese, then there was more money that went back to the Chinese.
Yeah, I mean, we see it with big businesses, with small businesses, something like Tom's. When you're socially responsible, when you do give back, it kind of, I think customers are behooved to support you more.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
it starts with a good product first. If your product's garbage, nobody's going to do anything. But if you have a good product and then they see that you're conscious of other people and want to help, I think that's awesome marketing.
It is. It is.
I think.
Any other takeaways or highlights?
I think takeaways for me is that my visit was a little different. I had an opportunity to visit schools in 3 major metropolitan areas, Shanghai, Beijing, and Xi'an. 3 total different types of cultures that were thousands of miles apart, by the way. So it was being a few days in one area, getting on a jet, and flying to another area. Visiting schools, private schools of the wealthiest to some public schools that were the poorest of some of the poorest.
Wow.
And comparing and contrasting those different environments. I had a little different experience. I felt that I was in a different country, a communist country at times. The public schools in particular are run by the government. As well as a principal in each school, they also had a government official.
Wow.
We might call them the superintendent of that school. But that was their job, and they were the ones who gave the tours primarily and talked about their education. But we did have a lot of opportunities to interact with their individual teachers as well as their principals. So that was what an experience for me to learn about that. I learned, of course, that in many of the European countries as well as in China that education is a little different. In China, kids are required to go to school from about age 5, a kindergarten age, through the 8th grade. But at the end of the 8th grade, they are given a test. If they do well on that test, then they have the opportunity to go to a high school and then on to college. If they do not score in the upper regions of that test, then they go back to home. They might have an opportunity at some technical career or whatever that might be, but primarily it's back to the village and what you might be doing.
So what their family's doing, or possibly like a trade school or something.
Exactly. So that was interesting, and you could just see the pressures from really young age to 8th grade on these kids. Talked to many of the kids, and they talked about when they went home at night, they literally did nothing but study until the wee hours in the morning and get up in the morning and go back to school. So pretty much 7 days a week. So when we talked about the differences in cultures between the American student and the Chinese student, they definitely understood that there was a huge difference in that regard. Wow. So it's those types of things, cultural differences. Some of the questions that were asked of me and my small group were questions that I thought were just, somewhat. Why don't you already know that answer? Like, for instance, in an elementary, the principal said, what we would like to do is to get our kids more involved in some of the community events, like maybe some social events, like maybe even just cleaning the streets. How do we get that going? And I kind of did the same thing. Well, why wouldn't you be doing something like that? But their culture is so different that that's new to them, completely new to do any of those types of things.
And it sounds like if they're so regimented and so focused on performance, it's kind of like, not how do we do it, but when.
When and where and those types of things. And for instance, I spoke about teaching of English. In many of the schools, when I would speak to the English teachers, they couldn't speak English.
Wow.
But they taught English.
Wow.
So you then can understand why many students, and I'm not saying in all schools, but in many schools where they really don't have a good understanding of the English language, because they're just basically phonetically looking at words, pronouncing them, and trying to put them together and those types of things.
Well, we are about out of time. Alex, any other kind of big takeaway or big lesson?
Well, I think one of the other big takeaways I had outside the summit was while we were in Shanghai, we got to visit the Google headquarters and see how Google runs in China with the censorship and whatnot. And then also, when we were in Beijing, we got to look at a traditional family. We went to have dinner with them. And while they're not completely comparable. It was really interesting to see the way the traditional China works. They lived in the Hutong, which is the old district of Beijing. We actually took a rickshaw tour around the area. But these were houses, they were only one story, you couldn't build them any higher. And these houses were worth millions of dollars because of the cultural value they had to the families, the way they were passed through generations. So there was a huge cultural aspect to these families that anchored them down. And then you see in Google Shanghai these huge skyscrapers that are being built, and the commerce, the World Trade Tower there. It was just, it's almost like two different Chinas exist side by side.
Well, we are completely out of time, but Alex Stringfellow, congratulations.
Thank you.
Good job, and I'm glad the trip was fun. Dr. Jackson, thanks for coming back again.
Thank you, Kyle.
This has been Dr. Dallas Jackson and Alex Stringfellow. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to Anderson Speaks. For our next segment, I want to go ahead and introduce our guest. He's a friend of the show here at Anderson Speaks, Mr. Alex Meacham. Not only is he a friend of the show, but he is one of us here at Anderson Community Television. We're going to get into that, but Alex, good seeing you, buddy.
Good seeing you too, man.
Thanks for coming back on. We had from what I found out, a rather serendipitous interview sometime last year.
That's a big word. That's a big word.
I have help.
Yep, there you go.
Andy helps me.
There you go.
But I had the privilege of sitting down and chatting with you sometime last year.
Yep.
And some really cool stuff has come out of that. So like I said, you have tons of connections, cool story to tell. But from that point on, anything that good happens to you, I want your Wikipedia page to reference mine, which will have nothing on it. Mine won't, but yours needs to have.
So it won't be a link to you?
It'll be a link to just empty page, but like this dude's got to do some other cool stuff other than helping Alex. So, but man, remind everybody your connections.
Well, first of all, I graduated from Roger Bacon High School and then went to the University of Cincinnati and was a walk-on for Bob Huggins. Mm-hmm. And after that, I had an opportunity to write a book called Walk of a Lifetime, which was one of the best sellers the year it came out,
Awesome.
number 6 locally.
Awesome.
So I beat out Nancy Reagan's book and the Beatles book.
Whoa.
Right, right. So
some big shoes, man.
Some
That's
big
awesome.
shoes right there. And then I started a basketball program called Shining Star, and have over 25 basketball teams, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. Let's get back to, again, that serendipitous
There's that word again.
conversation. I gotta
word.
make sure I get it in there, get it right. So we chatted, and then since then you have been hosting your own show.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
we have matching jackets. Only hosts get. It's kind of like a Saturday Night Live thing. Mine's in the car, but we'll get a photo op later.
Yeah.
But so what's that been like? Tell us how that came about, other than my magic touch, and
right.
and tell us what that experience has been like.
Yeah. So actually, when I was asked to come on here and do the show, it was actually, I think it was right after a holiday, I believe, and you didn't show up. And
I didn't.
It was a mix-up. It was a mix-up in the days, I believe. So I'm not going to put all the blame on you, but actually it was a blessing in disguise because I had an opportunity to talk to Nikki Bishop, and she and I sat down and I talked to her about a concept that I thought would be pretty cool that revolved around high school basketball and youth, and I think just great stories in our city about kids and some things they're going through, whether it's things with coaches, injuries, all that stuff. I said, man, there are a lot of great stories I think we can, touch upon. And Nikki really loved the idea. And then from there, kind of took off. And then when I did sit down and talk with you, and
Finally, when I showed up.
when you finally showed up, I was like, man, this is pretty cool. And it wasn't something I've ever done before. And so I had to learn a lot. I have a lot of respect for what you do and a lot of other people that sit in that chair.
What has been kind of the common thread through all the interviews and all the shows that you've done? What is the purpose of Center Court?
The purpose is I like for our audience to really understand, how important sports are in general. But we're using basketball because that's the sport I'm in. But just the tie from sports to life and how the two go together and they can impact each other. We were speaking before we started about Kevin Durant and his MVP speech And you asked me, did I cry? And I think most of the people that watched that, you know, came close to tears. And it's like, how can a guy who plays the game of basketball sit up there and cry? Well, people don't know what these folks go through. Injuries, life conditions, getting out of, you know, the inner city or whatever it is. So I wanted to bring kids on here, or just people in general, coaches, you know, whoever it was, and talk about their experiences and let our audience get educated, because sometimes all you see is what you see on SportsCenter, and that's not enough. And they do have other shows that highlight some of those things, but I think locally we have great stories here.
And too often what's in the news is, you know, if it bleeds, it leads. What's in the news is
Right.
kind of the negative stuff. It's the meltdowns, the breakdowns, the egos.
Right.
And it's awesome. And I mean, watching his MVP speech, I was blown away. I mean, you think, yeah, here's some millionaire playing a game, but the fact that he's in this situation he's in compared to where he came from, and to see him appreciate it that much, that's inspiring.
It truly is. And the fact that at the end of his speech, he said, my true MVP is my mother.
The real MVP.
The real MVP.
Yeah.
Right. And so, you know, that just shows you. I mean, his mom obviously worked hard to raise him. I think he said at one point during the speech that there were times that they didn't have food, and she did whatever she could to make sure they had it,
Absolutely.
even if she didn't have food to eat.
I got goosebumps right now.
Yeah, and it's
Her going to bed hungry.
like that's real stuff right there, folks. It's like that really happens. And so I just think those stories need to get out there more. And you know, you hit it on the head. You said there's so many negative things out there. I'm a firm believer that, you know, people love to see car wrecks. You know, you're on the highway, and when there's a crash, what's everybody doing? They're slowing down, they're looking, and they want to see that. And I think our society is like that a lot. You know, you watch the news, and, you know, sometimes people want to hear those things. But, you know, if we keep bringing to light these great stories, I had a kid on here, Sam Becker, I had Eric Thompson, all you know, all these folks are battling diseases that, you know, Eric's in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. But it's not stopping him from smiling every day and doing what he loves to do, and that's coach basketball. Awesome. I mean, what kid out there that's a high-level player looks at a guy in a wheelchair and says, I don't know if I can play for that guy. But he's gained the respect of so many people. And that's just a great story, and the folks needed to hear that.
That's awesome. Now, you mentioned it earlier. What is Shining Star Sports, and what's your vision behind the organization? And kind of briefly, how did that start, and where is it now?
Yeah, it started 13 years ago. And it was one of those things where growing up, I'd been through a lot of experiences, some good, some bad. But I kind of look at them, all of them were good because they ended up helping me out in some form or fashion. You know, I went through an injury. I got kicked in the knee, and my bone popped out a little bit, and went through that injury, went through coaches I didn't like. I think everybody kind of goes through that at some point. But I actually quit in front of my teammates.
Wow.
Yeah, I went through situations where I didn't study, and if you didn't study and you didn't get the right grades, you weren't playing. So I was saying, after I ended up walking on at UC, I said, how can I give back and maybe prevent that next kid from going through something that I went through? Because there are a lot of kids out there that can come to me and say, hey, I'm going through this, and I don't have a story to share with that person that parallels it, or I can help guide them through. I was like, well, how can we do it on a big scale? And then so Shining Star was created, and our whole goal was to basically take, you know, young men and young women and help build them into tomorrow's leaders. So our goal is to take these and use basketball, as I come back to talking about basketball, and using the game to teach them life skills. And so, like for instance with Shining Star, and I have 25 teams I have to oversee and run. And so I run it like a point guard. I go back to all the things that I learned as a point guard. You need to be vocal. You need to lead. You need to tell people, get here, get there. You need to be an extension of that coach. And so I lead that way. And so there's so many little lessons that we try to teach our kids like that they can go on and be CEOs, teachers, great parents, great dads, great moms. And I think at the end of the day, that's the importance of athletics, and that's what we're trying to teach through Shining Star.
Awesome. Now, again, Shining Star, what is it considered? What kind of organization?
It's a nonprofit 501c3.
Okay.
You know, so we have to get a lot of donations from different companies and individuals. So I spent a lot of time begging people for money. So I'm getting actually pretty good at it. And that was something, you know, like the TV show, I had never really, you know, done anything like that before where I was actually hosting.
Yeah.
I'd been interviewed. And then raising money, I had never really had any formal training in that. And this was something new to me. And I had to learn how to ask people for money. But the great thing was when you ask people, when you present a good product that's helping out kids and you have proof of that you've helped kids, a lot of people want to jump aboard that.
Awesome.
There are a lot of great people in this city that have helped support it,
Awesome.
our youth sports.
So what age ranges? Is it open? Is it select? Is it considered club, private, community?
Yeah, so ages, let's see, this year we're 12 all the way to 17. We would like to go a little bit younger soon, maybe 10 or 11, but you got to have good coaches. We start with our coaches first.
Awesome.
If you have good coaches and good teachers, the rest will take care of itself. You'll get the kids. It's an open tryout process where the kids all come in and they try out. So we'll have a tryout with 86 to 90 kids at one time, and we'll have evaluators, something like 8 to 10 evaluators, and we'll just kind of select it from there, put the kids on teams. They'll travel around the country. Teams will go to Orlando, Florida, Chicago, all around the country in hopes of, a lot of these kids want to have an opportunity to get a scholarship to play basketball. Not all of them will, but that's a lot of their goals. So we try to help them with that.
Is this something that can supplement if they're playing for a team in high school?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'll play your high school sport, high school basketball, and then when that's over, then they'll transition into the AAU. So high school basketball usually ends around March time, and then AAU kicks up in April.
That's what it's through. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't making that connection. No, I gotcha. Okay.
So the two are separate deals. So together though, we try to work with the high schools. We don't think we're better than the high school or work against them. We try to, work together and help the kids.
Awesome. Awesome. Any, off the top of your head, any kind of cool stories or any highlights with any particular kids out of that yet? Or
Oh, man. Doing it 13 years, we got
there's a lot.
A lot of cool stories. Probably one of the coolest stories was we had a kid who joined our program. We actually found him, but we saw him walking down the street, and one of our staff members was driving to a practice, and we actually were looking to find another big player for our team. And there's a kid walking down the street who had great, was tall, great size, and so our staff guy just kind of asked him, said, "Hey, you play basketball?" And it was kind of creepy, but he kind of was like, "Hey, you play basketball?" And I was like, "Yeah. Not very good, but I play." He says, "Hey, if you ever want to come out to one of our practices, we'd love to have you." And he says, "Well, I'm not doing anything now." Goes out to one of our practices. He joined our program, and his background, he didn't have any family members that had graduated.
Wow.
Some were in jail, and this kid went on to get a full scholarship to a major Division I college.
Wow.
And matter of fact, one of his teammates is playing in the NBA playoffs right now.
Wow.
And so I don't want to tell who the kid is, but he graduated college. He has a kid now. He's working. So a lot of great things. So that cycle that happened in his family of folks not graduating, involved in criminal activities, different stuff, we stopped. We were part of stopping that cycle.
That's awesome.
And that's what it's about. Now this adult now is raising kids, and he's raising his kids to be good citizens and all the things that we taught him and other people taught him. So that's the real cool thing about
That's
what we do, I
awesome.
think.
More goosebumps, man. So what are some goals you have for the future? I mean, concerning whether it's Shining Stars or Center Court or anything beyond that? You want to kind of, show us your hand about anything?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'm kind of keep everything close, but I will. I think one of the things we want to do with Shining Stars is we have 25 teams, and I personally feel like we don't touch enough lives out there. I mean, we have about 254 kids in our program. And I would like to see us in 3 years reach like 60 basketball teams.
Wow.
And, dealing with almost 650 plus kids a year. And I think once we do that, I think we're really making an impact on our city. So I want people to come to Cincinnati. If you move here from North Carolina and you come here and you say, I've got a kid and my kid needs to get involved with basketball. Does anybody know any programs? I want people to go Shining Star.
Awesome.
Just like when people get off the plane, they come to Cincinnati and say, I need some authentic Cincinnati food. There are certain places they send them right away,
Yeah.
okay? That people know that's a Cincinnati food. And I want to have that name for our program. As far as Center Court, I love it. I've really loved learning and being a host. And I see where that takes. I'd like to even take it a step further as I learn and get a lot better, and maybe do something beyond that. Interview great famous people. That would be because how you. I'm sure you go through this, but you watch interviews or you say like, I would love to interview
Yeah.
I'd ask this question. I do that so much now, and like Michael Jordan. The president or whoever it is. I mean, I've got questions that I think not only I want to know, but I think a lot of people want to know that I don't think they're getting.
It kills me to watch an interview and the person being interviewed says something and this huge thing pops up like, oh, we got to go there. We need to, what about that? It brings up something and I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh. And then like, it doesn't get touched on.
Yeah,
Drives me
they don't
crazy.
get-
Because I'm like,
That's right, I know.
I don't want to sound arrogant. I'm not like the interviewer missed some huge opportunity because they probably have a purpose. But there's something that just grabs my attention and my curiosity so much. I wish I could just be like, what was that? Or can we go into that more?
Absolutely. Well, one of the things that I had to learn quickly was, and I think you do a great job of this, and that is to ask the question and get out of the way. And that was a skill that I, had to learn. I had to watch. I had to go watch, certain people that do great interviews on TV, go YouTube a lot of things. Ask the question and let that person, run with it. Be the star.
Yeah.
And you just kind of fill in and hit things and lead them. And I think you do a great job of that as well.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So it was definitely a learning process, and never know where it can take me or you. Right.
We already do. You do a lot of cool stuff. Alex and I are not BFFs, but we are FBFs, which I think is more important nowadays, which means Facebook friends.
Right.
And I love the updates and stuff you have where just cool stuff. And what I love most is when I read it, I don't get this sense of the Facebook brag. You're
yeah.
always so appreciative of what you're doing.
Oh, thank you.
And people enjoy. You share because people enjoy, and you got cool stories, and you relate it to things. And I love stories from your past, and I love some of the recent stuff about Huggins and other people. We're like just that connection back, and very cool stuff.
Yeah,
So
thank you, man.
we got only a couple minutes left, and you got a particular story or something from your UC days or anything that'd be
man.
fun to tell.
Let's see, a
Again,
clean,
probably-
a clean story?
Yeah.
Yeah, clean one. Yeah, I've got a lot of stories, and I think what you're saying about the Facebook is, a lot of things happen in the locker room or just in life that I call life's locker room that a lot of people don't get to see and hear about. And I think that's one of the great things about social media and Facebook, that you can put some of those locker room stories out there and people can learn to appreciate some things that go on. And so a story from UC, I tell you, one of my favorite stories was one of my teammates was Kenyon Martin, who was Player of the Year. Who actually I got a chance to interview on Center Court and went on to have a great NBA career. And I think he just had surgery on Monday to correct an ankle, so he's still playing in the NBA. He played with the Knicks this past year. So Kenyon was one of the best players on UC's team, and we come into the locker room at halftime, and we're at home, and we have our white jerseys on, and Huggins comes busting in the door to the locker room, and he is pissed off. And
Really?
yeah, like, imagine that, right? And so Kenyon's right next to me, got our white uniforms on, and Huggins is always holding this can of soda. And Huggins is here, and there's a board here where he writes all the plays, and I'm sitting here, and Kenyon's here, and Hugs just in slow motion just starts launching back, and he lets that pop go, and it goes flying, and it hits. So it hits the board, and I just knew that it was going to come up. So here I am, it's like slow motion, like, and I'm protecting the star player. So I like lean over and I protect Kenyon, and all this soda just comes flying on my white jersey.
Took a soda
But
bullet.
I did, and I protected Kenyon, and I think he should repay me for that with about. No, I'm just kidding.
That's awesome,
Yep.
dude. You got to come back. I'm sure people can
Absolutely.
see it on the show, but please come back, man. It's been Alex Meacham, host of Center Court and Shining Star Sports. He's got to go, but we'll be right back after this break, so you stay with us. And we're back with our final segment of this June edition of Anderson Speaks. With us, we have two local musicians, and I'm very excited to chat with them today. And they are associated with the Anderson Community Band. So to my right, your left, is John Fecker and Christina Morales. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you very much.
Like I just said, you guys are with the Anderson Community Band. But before we get to that, what other connections do you guys have with the Anderson area? John?
Well, I have lived here in Anderson Township for the last 31 years, and previously I worked for the Forest Hills School District. I was the band director at Turpin High School for 26 years.
Awesome.
And retired in 2005. I'm still involved with the community as I still work over at Nagel Middle School part-time to help out with the 7th grade band, and I conduct the Anderson Community Band on Monday nights.
Awesome.
Well, I've always lived in Anderson Township. I am a senior. I was a senior at Anderson High School.
Yeah, you just graduated, didn't
Yeah, I did actually, and I've played in the bands, and I've lived here all my life.
you? Awesome. Hold on, Okay, control room just got to me. We're gonna continue with the interview. You guys definitely qualify as Anderson folks. No,
Okay.
I was teasing. I was like, "What's your connection?" You guys been here my whole life. That's awesome.
Right. Yeah.
No, I wasn't trying to qualify you guys for the interview, but we love highlighting people who are from the area, who other people are going to know. It's awesome to share stories. But you guys are here to talk about the Anderson Community Band. As you said, you are the conductor.
Right, I've been the conductor for this is actually my 10th year as conductor of the Anderson Community Band. And we have series concerts, 3 concerts a year, which we started about 6 years ago is when the Anderson Center opened up. And we do a concert in December, March, and at the end of the school year. This year it kind of bleeds over into June, which is kind of unusual, but it was a busy June when we scheduled the program. Our June program is really an important program for us as it's our scholarship concert. And this year we actually had a concerto competition to decide our winner of our scholarship, and Christina has won that award.
Awesome. Awesome. So what was involved in that? And we just, the concert was June 1st, so we just missed that. If folks are watching it, we missed that. But what was involved with you getting to this point, and what did you do with the concert?
Well, my band director, Toby Biederman at Anderson High School, gave me a sheet to sign up to audition. So I just went up, auditioned for Mr. Fecker, and I got the solo.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And what do you play?
I play clarinet.
So you had a clarinet solo,
Yes.
and it went well?
Yeah, it went really well.
Scholarship level, obviously.
Yes, it was great. I played the Mozart Clarinet Concerto, 3rd movement.
Awesome. Awesome. Was it just a single tryout, or was there anything else involved with that? I mean, just boom like that, like, she's awesome, we got to have her, sign her up.
Well, I guess that would probably be fair to say. Yes, there were, the application process required them to play a piece that has an accompaniment for a concert band, because there's a lot of music that's written for any number of solo instruments, including the clarinet, but not all of them have a band accompaniment with them. And the students also had to have a proven track record as a soloist at school or with the Ohio Music Education Association Solo and Ensemble Contest. And of course, they have to be a member in good standing with their current band program, which of course Christina is an outstanding member with the Anderson High School Band.
which is a total shock to me because her demeanor so far has been just outrageous, right?
Right.
No, I'm sure you were highly touted.
Christina is really quite the leader as well
Awesome.
in her band program. She can probably tell you more about that.
Well, tell me more
Yeah.
about that.
Well, besides concert band and pit orchestra, symphony orchestra, a large part of high school is musically is the marching band. And I've been involved with that all 4 years. And 2 of those years, actually, I've been field commander. So I'd conduct all of our shows, all of the pep songs in the stands. I would run the band camps, help run rehearsals, and show discipline, be a leader, things like that, be a good example.
So I'm just imagining you just like this huge set of lungs, just like barking orders. Not negatively, but like just like it's kind of funny who you are, kind of quaint, cute, and
Yeah.
small, and then like because I know what it takes. I mean, I was in band myself. I wasn't in marching band. I played football, but I had a lot of my friends were in it, and we took it seriously. And I know that stuff. I'd rather do football 2-a-days than go through some of that stuff.
It's very high disciplined. There's a lot of work that goes into it, weeks of blood, sweat, and tears. But it was a good experience. It was great.
Awesome.
And being a director of a marching band for many years, I can just say, directors are always looking for their best students to put out in a pressure-packed situation.
Yeah.
It's one of the things about the marching band. As the directors, we really don't conduct. We turn it over to student leaders. And it's really a tremendous opportunity for the right candidates. And if you're going to have a successful organization, you have to have the right person in front of them and representing that group. So I'm sure Christina, I've actually watched her conduct and judge the band, so she did a wonderful job.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I want to talk about the community band specifically. Sure. I love the idea, having been involved in stuff myself, being theatrical, musical, these continued opportunities for involvement, things like that. A lot of people think when you're done with high school or college, it's like, what do I do? But we have the Anderson Community Theater, we have the Anderson Community Band.
Right.
Give us a little history on the band and how can folks find out more and how can they get involved?
Well, actually, as far as the history, it started some 30 years ago, and it was part of that history a little bit as things got started, but as I got more involved with my duties at Turpin and having a family, I stopped participating, but the band stuck on. And when I took it over 10 years ago, we had about 35 players in the group. And one of the things that's really been a catalyst for the interest in the group is having a place to play concerts. And we've been able to really grow the band. We now have over 65 players in the group.
Wow.
And we're able to do some really advanced literature, but also do some things that what I would like to call audience friendly. People will come to our concerts and they'll hear things that they kind of expect community band organizations to play, like musicals and marches and traditional things that are part of any community band. But we also do a lot of really, I would like to say, college level literature as well, things that they may not be familiar with. But I think by and large, our audiences do enjoy hearing them. So.
That's an issue with anything that's community oriented, is that you may have people in the band and in the theater and other places that are phenomenally talented, but this isn't what they do for a living. They love it, and so sometimes what you're able to do, you probably could do more, but people have families and jobs, and prep is probably an issue.
That's right. We have one rehearsal a week, and we hardly ever have everybody there for our rehearsal, just because, like you say, some of our members are away out of town for jobs, or their kids are sick, or it's tough getting everybody there every week. But in the end, when we do all get together, it really sounds pretty good.
That's awesome.
And so it's been a lot of fun.
And so all the concerts are held different places or primarily?
Like I said, we have a series of concerts here at the Anderson Center. The concerts are free, and you can find out more about our concerts on our website. It's easy to remember, andersoncommunityband.org.
Awesome.
All of our dates are up there. And then after we finish with our concert series, we have some summer concerts that are outdoor events that we do.
Awesome. Awesome. Christina, we only have a few minutes left, so I wanted to talk about what your plans are now that you are done with the Forest Hill School District. You are going to college,
Of course, yes.
but you are not going to focus in the music area, are you?
No, I'm not. Actually, I will be a business major at Miami University, Oxford. But I will minor in clarinet. I'll keep the music alive that way. I put in so much time into it. It's really made me who I am today, clarinet, music in general, so I'll keep at it.
That's awesome. And as we were talking before the taping, you're planning to parlay this into being a music mogul, like a music media mogul, correct, with the business and clarinet? Let's see where you go with that.
We'll see. I don't know. Maybe I'll just play for fun. Maybe I'll play in a community band, community orchestra. We'll see where life takes me.
Awesome. Well, we're excited for you, and I really appreciate you guys coming on and sharing about your experience and where you're going to go. We love hearing awesome stories and seeing people excel, and we love hearing about, I love community stuff, so thank you. And we'll have to have you guys back. You can follow up once you're a huge mogul success. Don't forget us small people, and we can go back and talk more about the concert series and stuff. But
right,
this has been John Fecker and Christina Morales with the Anderson Community Band. We're all done for the month of June. We hope to see you next time.